Note to self, Ron whispered, staring up at the 12-foot shadow crouching over him. Next time the galaxy's trying to kill you, don't flirt with the thing that could use your ship as a toothpick. He thought she'd eat him alive, and technically, he wasn't wrong. Ron Hale had learned long ago that space didn't hate you. It just didn't care. When his freighter, Argus Run, slammed through the upper atmosphere of an unnamed desert world, he discovered what indifference felt like. Heat, fire, and silence. The impact threw him half a kilometer from the wreck. The only things that still worked were his heartbeat and a cracked helmet that whispered, "Oxygen critical." He crawled toward a ridge, boots sinking into orange dust that shimmered like crushed glass. Every breath felt borrowed. His survival training told him to inventory supplies. His human brain decided to argue about the odds. 3 suns? 2? Great. Double the radiation, none of the shade. He laughed once, a hoarse, broken sound that came out like a cough. By the second hour, hallucinations flirted with the edges of his vision, shapes rising from the dunes, vanishing when he blinked. Then the ground trembled. A rhythmic thump, slow and deliberate, rolled through the sand. He looked up and froze. The horizon was moving. A ridge that he'd taken for stone unfurled into the outline of a colossal figure, taller than any ship he'd flown. She stepped out of the sun, armor glinting green gold, her shadow swallowing him whole. Ron's first instinct was absurdly human, to wave. Hi? The giantess tilted her head. Her eyes gleamed like molten amber. Her voice was a low vibration that rattled his bones. He couldn't understand a word. She crouched, studying him with a mix of curiosity and caution, as if he were a wounded animal that might still bite. He stumbled backward and fell to his knees. So this is it, he thought, eaten by a supermodel Godzilla. Instead of striking, she extended one massive hand, palm upward. The gesture was gentle, almost protective. Wind from her movement tore at his clothes, but her expression held no malice, only wonder. He hesitated, then reached out, her fingers, each thicker than his arm, closed around him with surprising delicacy. As she lifted him toward eyes that reflected both suns, Ron realized the universe had just rewritten its definition of impossible. Somewhere between terror and awe, his mind settled on a single thought. Please don't chew with your mouth open. When consciousness returned, Ron was inside something that hummed. Light spilled through bars that weren't metal but strands of glowing crystal, vibrating in rhythm with his pulse. Every time he moved, the cage adjusted. As if deciding how dangerous he was allowed to be beyond it, the giantess knelt by a console carved into the cave wall. Her armor was gone, replaced by fabric that shimmered like living leaves. The air smelled of ozone and crushed mint. He realized with a jolt that he could breathe without his cracked helmet. She'd fixed it, or maybe fixed the air. Hey, he croaked. Thanks for not turning me into a snack. She turned, golden eyes narrowing at the strange words, but softening when he pointed to the cage and pantomimed, "Let me out." For a moment she simply watched him, thoughtful, then tapped a device on her wrist. A wash of static filled the air. "Containment for safety," a metallic translator stammered. "You dangerous carnivore?" Ron blinked. "Carnivore? Lady, the only thing I've eaten in 3 days is regret." She tilted her head, misunderstanding the joke, but noting the exhaustion in his voice. A sound like a laugh or a purr escaped her. Then the ground shook again, deeper this time. The cave lights flickered. Sand hissed through the entry tunnel. Vara glanced at the ceiling, muttering something sharp. The translator lagged behind her words. Storm rising. Shields failing. Ron's instincts kicked in. "You've got a generator? Capacitor overload, maybe. Let me help." She hesitated, then brushed the cage with her hand. The bars dissolved into dust, freedom, warm and humming. They worked side by side, Ron half buried in cables while Vera anchored conduits thicker than tree trunks. When a surge arced toward his face, she moved faster than his eyes could follow, intercepting the spark with her gauntlet. The blast left smoke curling from her palm. He stared up at her. "You just took a lightning bolt for me." Vera looked at the blackened glove, then at him. "Little one," the translator murmured. "You break things fast, I repair faster." The storm howled outside. Inside, something quieter cracked open. The beginning of trust, faint as static but impossible to ignore. By morning, the storm had thinned into dust halos around the suns. Ron followed Vera through a canyon carved smooth by centuries of wind, his boots crunching against stones that glowed faintly underfoot. Her strides covered meters, his barely feet. Yet she slowed for him, occasionally glancing back to make sure he hadn't vanished into a sandpit or gotten flattened by curiosity. The canyon opened into a valley that looked impossible, lush, green, alive. Floating crystals pulsed overhead like artificial clouds, raining soft light over fields of silver grass. Alien birds spiraled between energy spires. It was a secret oasis hidden beneath a sky that wanted everything dead. "Welcome to Velour," the translator said in her melodic echo. Ron stopped, taking it in. "So this is where the giant vegetarians hide their vegetables." Vera's lips curved. "Sanctuary," the device translated, or prison, depends who asks. He picked up on the bitterness under her tone. The people who lived here weren't free. They were guarding something, or being guarded themselves. As they approached a settlement, other Valurians appeared, towering, graceful, wary. Their eyes tracked him like he was a walking contagion. Whispers rippled through the crowd, and Ron didn't need a translator to know the vibe. Outsider, unwelcome, possibly breakfast. A male elder in ornate armor approached Vara, his voice carrying authority. The translation lagged, but the message was clear. "Why bring this creature here?" Vera straightened. "He fixed the shield," she said firmly. "Without him, the storm would have erased our dome." The elder studied Ron for a long, uncomfortable silence, then turned away with a flick of dismissal. Ron exhaled. "So, not a fan club then?" "Old minds," Vara said. "They worship order, purity, no change, no risk." She glanced down at him. "You confuse them." "Story of my life." They reached her dwelling, part crystal, part living vine. Inside, the air hummed softly. She offered him water, gestured to sit. For the first time, he saw her without armor, without command, just someone tired of being misunderstood. "Vera," he said quietly, "why help me?" "Because," the translator hesitated before catching up, "you remind me what courage looks like." And for the first time, Ron didn't have a joke ready. Ron had started to believe the worst was over. He'd survived a crash, a cage, and a storm that could melt steel. He even thought he was beginning to understand Vara, her quiet humor, her flashes of defiance against her rigid world. He was wrong. The alarms came first, long, low tones that shook the valley. Valurians spilled into the open streets, their armor catching the twin suns like mirrors. Vera's hand tightened around her spear. "Commander Viel," she said, her tone clipped. Even without translation, Ron knew the name meant trouble. A formation of soldiers descended from the ridge, their commander a taller, sharper version of Vara. Same golden eyes. None of the warmth, his voice echoed across the clearing, amplified by his armor. "You brought a predator into our sanctuary. You've broken the code." Vera stepped forward, unarmed but unyielding. "He's no predator. He's proof we were wrong." The crowd murmured. Ron's gut twisted. He wanted to run, to disappear, but something in her stance, proud, furious, unafraid, kept him rooted. Vale raised his arm. Energy gathered, forming a sphere that hissed with violet light. "Then both of you will burn for your heresy." The blast fired before Ron could think. Vera moved faster, slamming her spear into the ground, splitting the energy like lightning through a forked tree. The air exploded with heat. He dove for cover as shards of crystal rained down. "Ron, go!" she shouted. "Not without you." She threw him her wrist device. "Your ship's core still pulses. Find it. You can survive." "I didn't crawl out of hell just to watch you die in one," he snapped, crawling toward her. They fought side by side, his hands jury-rigging shields from shattered tech, while she held off soldiers twice her size. Sparks filled the air, glowing against the valley's green light. Somewhere between the chaos, their hands brushed. Brief contact, but electric. For a heartbeat, he saw through her eyes the endless duty, the loneliness, the ache of being exiled by the world she'd bled to protect. When the dust settled, Viel lay defeated, but Vara was bleeding. She smiled faintly, collapsing beside him. "Little one," she whispered, "you're worse than any storm." He caught her before she hit the ground. "Good, because I'm not done yet." When Ron woke, the world smelled of rain. He lay on cool stone, the ceiling above him pulsing with faint blue light. Someone had carried him here. He could feel the imprint of armor against his ribs. Vara sat nearby, wrapped in a cloak the color of twilight. Her arm bandaged, her eyes still fierce. For a long time, neither spoke. The silence wasn't awkward, it was full. "Vale?" Ron asked finally. "Gone," she said softly. "Taken by his own anger, the council recalled the troops. They think we're dead." He managed a crooked smile. "Guess that makes us legends already." She looked at him the way a person studies something they never expected to need. "You should leave. You've done enough." "Maybe," he said, sitting up despite the pain. "But I didn't come this far to go back to being a ghost in a cockpit." Outside, the storm had scoured the valley clean. The great crystals hummed again, repaired by Vera's people, who now watched from a distance. No longer hostile, just uncertain. Ron stepped into the light beside her. "I sent a message," she said quietly. "Not to beg forgiveness, to tell them the truth. The purity they worship is killing us. Our bloodlines are fading." He studied the twin suns cresting the horizon. "Then maybe a little contamination is what the universe needs." Vera's laugh was tired but genuine. She reached down, resting her huge hand against his chest, feeling his heart hammer. "You risked everything for me. Why?" "Because," he said, "you made the universe feel small enough to care about again." For once, translation wasn't needed. Later, they stood at the edge of the repaired dome as the first new growth pushed through the sand, silver shoots reaching for the light. Valyrian children gathered around, watching Ron adjust a small beacon. When he activated it, a soft pulse spread across the valley, a signal of coexistence, not conquest. Vera turned toward him, her golden eyes reflecting both suns. "What now, little one?" Ron smiled. "Now we build something worth being eaten for." Their laughter echoed through the valley, rising with the dawn. For the first time, the desert didn't look empty. It looked alive. They called it survival at first. One man, one giantess, two species trying not to destroy each other. But somewhere between the storms and the silence, they built something rarer than peace, understanding. He thought the giantess was a carnivore and would eat him. And maybe she did, just not the way he feared, because in the end, she devoured his loneliness, and he consumed her doubt. And from that strange hunger, a new world was born. Under two suns, life began again, not through power or purity, but through the simplest, most dangerous idea in the universe: connection.